Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? So I would like to have some respond. Perfect means that our system works fine, and we will wait for another 5 to 10 minutes for more students to join us. Then we will start the session today. Okay, so I'm gonna mute my microphone for a while. Okay, good afternoon, students. Um, it's very happy to have you here with me for this first common course of research method. Okay, so the first thing that I would like you to pay attention is that in the first session of the research method, you were introduced with the research projects and supervisors. So I guess you may already have find a supervisor and decided on a project to work on, which is very good, which is we are expecting. However, unfortunately, you haven't find a supervisor until now. Okay, then you have to do it quickly because if we excluding last and this week, you will only have 6 to 5 weeks for your research projects, which could be very time limited for you to finish a research proposal and a literature review. And not to mention, you have your first assignment to be submitted on. The first assignment will be. Let me take a look in my system. The first assignment will be paper dissection. Means that after this session, okay, you will be given some time to finish a paper reading and um, and based on that paper, you are required to answer a few questions regarding the content of the paper and some other important information, which I will teach you in this session. And after that, you will need to submit your literature review, okay, on October 14th. Okay, so starting from now, you have less than 4 weeks, which means you have to decide on the research project as soon as you can, so that you give yourself enough time to finalize all the reports and proposals. Okay, so I recommend you to do it as soon as you can. If you haven't, please contact a supervisor um, right now. Okay, just send them an email, then see whether they have still have vacancies for the project you want to work on. Okay, to begin with, I would like to say a few words regarding what we will do in the remaining 3 sessions of this research methods. This is the first time that we have research method co-taught among 3 disciplines. So sitting with you are students from electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and civil engineering. So we have all three, we have the 3 students from all 3 disciplines attending this session right now. So means that we have to customize the teaching material and the way how we teach research methods in a more general way. Okay, so what you will find in the remaining 3 lessons, okay, in the remaining 3 lectures, uh, lecturers will teach you the basic skills of doing research. Those skills are very fundamental. For example, how you can find a reference, okay, in the database for your own use, how you can read a paper effectively and efficiently to identify the key information, how you can write an effective research proposal and literature review. And but what we can offer you is more like skills type of thing. For example, when you are trying to learn the frog style, okay, you try to learn swing. We can only teach you how to move your arms and legs, right? But if you want to acquire that skill or technique, you have to train yourself. You have to do practice. You have to start to write a research proposal and start to write a literature review. Then you can apply those skills into the real practice. So this is not the same as the other uh, common lectures. Okay, like you learn about mathematics, you will be immediately told how to do integration, how to do differentiation. Those skills can be immediately applied after the teaching teach you how to do it. But for research method, we require you to do some training. Okay, so this is the first thing I want to mention about. Because we are now we have 3 students from all 3 disciplines. So the way how we submit assignment is slightly different from your other courses. So what I'm gonna show you next is just one moment. Okay, so I am now showing you the screen that I have. So those assignment submission, if you go to your canvas, right, and you go to assignments, those assignment submission are separated into 3 disciplines. So one thing I have to be very sure that you understand is that you need to follow the discipline tab to submit your assignments. For example, if you look at the first item, which is electrical engineering, okay, it's a bit small, but I still think you can read. I mean, large a bit. So if you look at here, it's electrical engineering, okay, assignment, and available only to EE students. So if you are not a EE students, but a civil engineering students, you need to go to the second tab and do a submission over there, okay? Let me make this clear. You need to follow the instruction of the group title when you are submitting assignments, okay? And it applies to all assignments you're about to submit, okay? So you can see all the assignments among the three disciplines are the same, but they are directed to different portals, okay? So our supervisors and teachers can have an easier time to find your assignments and submissions. This is why we intentionally separate into three portals. Okay, so make sure you do a submission in the right portal by following the name tag over there. Okay, either electrical, civil, or mechanical. Okay, and all the deadline are the same. We only separate the portal. Okay, but all other stuff are the same. Some of the online tests are adapted to particular discipline. For example, in the first quiz, Middleton test, okay, find and analyze the research publication. The paper or the reference used in electrical engineering is the paper from electrical engineering. Whereas if you are in a civil engineering or mechanical engineering, the material used will be in that particular discipline. Okay, those are the only difference that we have here. We use different material customized to different disciplines. Okay, this is the thing that I want to make sure you understand. Okay, let's go back to the lecture notes here. Go back to here and talk about what we are going to learn in this first common course. So what we are about to talking about is basically reference searching. And in this lesson, you will be required to do some online practice. Means that while I am teaching you how to do the reference searching or pivot dissection, you also have to do some practice in the class. So I'm gonna show you some links and QR code, and then make sure you have your phone or computer ready because we're gonna do some practice when I explaining all those skills and techniques. Only by doing so, I guess you can understand how those things work. Otherwise, it's only left in and right out. Okay, you probably will not be able to apply them later. Uh, Another thing that I want to talk about is your expectation about the research method. You know, we don't have any tests. Okay, we don't have any attendance record. We don't have any like midterm examination or final examination. The course itself is all based on the research proposal. Those academic writings you submit, your markings are all depends on the presentation, research proposal, and literature. All three, we call them academic writing. Depends on academic writings. So it means that it's quite different from the usual lecture courses where you take the lesson, you have your laboratory, you have a small test, you have your final examination. It's totally different. Okay, so this is the first thing. The way of assessment is completely different. We're looking at the quality of your academic writing and presentation. Okay, this is the first thing. So you need to spend a lot of time to refining your writings in the way that we will talk about. For example, in literature review, you probably have to do a very comprehensive and insightful survey about the project you are about to work on. Okay, or when you are doing the research proposal, you may require to do a very clear budget proposal. Say you need to buy some components, you need to explain why you need that components and why you require this amount of money for that components, sort of things. So you can see the requirement of this academic writings are very different from those lecture notes, okay, lecture courses, because you don't have a correct answer to follow. Okay, understand? You don't have a correct answers to follow. What you can do is to use your knowledge, use your thinking, use your innovation, okay, to compile a document that is so convincing, so eye-catching, and then you can have a good grade on that assignments you work on. Okay, this is the first thing you need to think about. It's a completely an open book question. There's no straightforward answer, and there's no right or wrong. You just have to use your creativity, use your innovation, and use your thinking. Okay, about the project you're working on. So this is the first thing you need to understand. The second thing is in this course, usually we don't have formulas. We don't have like equations. We don't have such kind of thing, which you commonly see in other lecture courses. And in other lecture courses, you will have very clear lecture notes. You have the guidance. You have section one, which is calculus. Maybe section two is about differentiation. You have very clear title for one skill or part of knowledge. But in research method, it's all open. We talk about the basic skills instead of the knowledge. We talk about the skills. We talk about how you can find references, how you can write academic paper instead of on how what you need to put in your research proposal. Okay, we talk about the skills instead of knowledges. So this is the other difference. Uh, Therefore, when we talk about the course, right, we probably will just give you some practice and advices. Those are the two keywords. Okay, what is the best practice you can pursue, and what are the advice we have here? Then we would like to create a foundation. Okay, a foundation build up on which you will be able to do your research in the future. Okay, build up a foundation, let you know what is happening there, what are people are doing. Okay, those sort of things. And we would like to create a strong desire for new knowledge among our students. And we would like to use innovative thinking to solve problems. Okay. And finally, there will be a lot of practice along in the course. And I hope you can join us as much as you can. Okay. Those are the expectations you have. Let me conclude a bit. It's an open book type of course. Okay. We don't have right or wrong answer. We expect you to be creative, okay, to build up some foundation of doing research. At least you know what is happening in there. And lastly, we would like you to be involved, to be active when we are doing exercises and practices, okay? So about the schedule, you already have the first week of lecture, which is mostly project introduction. And today we're having the second lecture offered by myself, which is basic of research methods and literature review. And we will be talking about how to find a reference, how to read them, and then we're gonna tell you how to write a literature review. Okay, and be careful, those skills offered are only technical skills instead of what you need to put in there. Okay, we'll talk about the step one, step two, step three, but what you need to make use of in those steps differs from person to person. Say, if you are working on a project talking about renewable energy, okay, you apply the same steps to writing the literature review on renewable energy, but the content you use are focused on renewable energy. You need to find the resources, information in that particular area, and put them in a order sequence, which we will talk about. Okay, step one, what you need to do. Step two, what you need to do. But you still need to find those source of information in the particular area you are working on. So this is quite customized and quite individual. Okay, quite individual. Second is about library research and referencing. Now, this is another very important topic that we do a lot in academics. So Dr. Yong Tong Tan from Civil Engineering will be giving that lecture. And also is about how to write a research proposal by using databases. Later, I'm going to show you what are the common databases we use in academic, especially in engineering science. This course will be offered by Dr. Hamid Khayyam. And by doing these three lectures, we covered the basics about literature review, about uh, referencing and reference search, then about research proposal. Okay, those are the three major academic writing we talk about in research or in academics. Okay, so I think you probably know about the structure of the course. Okay, in fact, the research method is one of the courses among the three sequential courses in this next and next trimester. So in fact, you have to consider yourself as doing a project starting from now, and this project will continue for a 1 year time. You have a three trimester to finish the project starting from this trimester by selecting the topic you want to work on. So imagine yourself finishing the project in three trimesters, and in each trimester, what you have to finish. to guarantee that by the end of the last trimester, you can finish your project successfully and completely. Okay? You have to think about now. You need to have a plan. And this is what we are expecting by the end of this course, this research method course. You need to provide a research proposal addressing when and how you're gonna finish your project. Understand? Any questions so far? Okay, let me expand a little more by giving you some more specific details listed here. Research method course is actually the stage where you build up a foundation. You read reference, you do your thinking, you compare solution A and solution B. Then by weighting their benefits and weaknesses, you tell people why the solution you propose is the best for this application. Understand? For example, you try to buy a cell phone. Okay, there are so many brands in the market. You have iPhone, you have Samsung, you have Nokia, and all those brands have so many models, and you have to choose one among so many models. Okay, so in this stage, you have to do a survey among all the available models, okay, on the market. However, those models may vary in price, in weight, in shape, in size, and you have to put on your own constraint when selecting the model that you want. And those constraints can be either the amount of money you can afford, the size of the phone you like, the weight you like, or simply the brand. Understand? So by putting those constraints, you pick up the phone that is most suitable for yourself. Okay? So writing the research proposal is exactly the same. We call it a stage of building up a foundation. You need to do the background study in this trimester. The first thing you need to do is to build up your background study, okay? Which means after you choosing your topic, you need to start to find relevant references. For example, people may working on wind turbine. Okay, talk about one mechanical structure. For example, the gearbox in the wind turbine. Now you have to find relevant references to survey what are the existing solution and knowledges. There might be gearbox type 1, gearbox type 2. And why gearbox type 2 is suitable for wind turbine application. Now you need to weigh the shortcomings, the weaknesses, and benefits. Then you tell people why this gearbox is suitable for the application of turbine, wind turbine. Just like why this cell phone is suitable for you. You put up all the constraints. Maybe this is the size of the wind turbine, maybe the application location, or other reasons. You have all this, how to say, argument, okay, behind the final conclusion. So by doing the background study, what you will move on to is problem identification. After you survey all these existing solutions, you always find a problem to be solved because there is no perfection in the world. There will always be a problem to be solved. Okay, even the best model of phone must have shortcoming. Okay, so you buy the latest version of iPhone, it still has shortcoming. So what is the shortcoming of the problem you're looking at? You need to be very specific and very clear. Okay. Then after you identify all these problems, you already finish part of the literature review because you do a very good survey about the existing solution. You identify the problem. You tell people why A is bad, B is good, why A sometimes good, B sometimes is bad. You tell all their applications in you tell all their possible applications in different scenarios. With all this argument about the weaknesses and shortcomings or benefits, you already finished a very good literature review. Then next thing, what you need to do is to solve the problem you identified, right? You solve the problem you identified. After identifying it, right? You solve the problem. Then how you can solve the problem? You need to propose some theory. You need to design a method. You need to build a model. You need to do some simulation. You may also need to do coding. You may need to build up a software. Then you use those measurements, those data, those performance to tell people your proposed method work. Am I right? Am I right? You find a problem, you try to address it. But at this point, in scientific writing, we expect that the people who propose a solution can offer valid and feasible reason why it is worth doing. Okay, this is something that you will learn about in the last common lecture of this course. But let's move on. So, in other words, that research method is simply in a stage where we build up the theoretical foundation. You look at all the existing knowledge, you're weighting their benefits and shortcomings, you put your eye on the one particular problem you try to solve, then you propose a theory, a method to solve it. Okay? Then when you move up to stage two, design project 4A, what you need to do, you start to work on your solution to tackle that problem. Okay? So usually you cut your project into two stages. In the first stage is some theoretical work. You probably need to build up a model. I believe some of you learned control system, right? Just give me some feedback. Does have you learned control system or or advanced control system? Okay, you must have learned some mechanical structure analysis kind of course, right? Or a circuit analysis course, right? Some kind of structure analysis course. In electrical engineering, we have the circuit analysis control system. In mechanical engineering, you probably have the structure analysis or certain analysis, okay? Those analysis method offered in those courses will be the foundation you use to build up your theoretical framework, okay? So you may need to build up a circuit model to examine how it performs. You may need to carry out some simulation to tell whether the circuit works fine with the theory you developed. For example, in control system, we have so many different kinds of control techniques, PI control, PID control, or some other control. So those control will be the source of information, the knowledge you may apply in designing the solution. Okay, so think about that. You may need to build up a model, you may build up design, you may do some tests for those designs. Okay, and the last in design project 4B is the time for you to practically implement your solution. Is that clear? I believe most engineering courses require some hardware implementation. Okay, this is quite straightforward because we're engineers. We're supposed to make things happen, make things in practice to show people it actually works. Okay, so you probably need to build a circuit or software or a mechanical structure or uh, some blueprints in civil engineering. Okay, you may need to build up all this sort of stuff. Then design project for B is mostly focused on that practical implementation. You need to build up a hardware, you need coding, you need to do software design and all sort of things. So in other words, in these three courses, the first course, build up foundation. Second course, establish your solution and build up the theory. And the last is practical implementation. This is why the project takes you 3 trimesters to manage. And it's a very challenging task if you really want to do it well. You need to catch time, catch the moment starting from now, okay? Because in each trimester, you only have like 6 to 8 weeks to work on a project. And sometimes it's quite time limited, okay? If you don't work hard on it. Okay, assignments, talk a little bit about assignments. We have like 4 assignments. The first assignment, it's a paper dissection, which you are able to do after this course. I will teach you very specifically how you can read a paper and how you can identify the important information in the paper. In the meantime, you will be required to do some practice in the class to sharpen those skills. So don't worry, it's not a very challenging part. Okay, it's mostly about reading the article and find source of information. And second is literature review, which weighting a slightly high percentage, 30%. Okay, we will talk about how to write a literature review as well by leading you reading through a literature review and identify how the academic writing comes together. Okay, which part you need to include and what is the logic behind when you are writing a paragraph or you are combining those chapters or sections together. Okay, we will look at one, a particular literature review, and to identify those information. And the third assignments will be research proposal, which is which has the highest amount of rating in our course, which is 40%. So you really need to work hard on it, because it's gonna affect your final result quite a bit. Okay, And I guess in the last lecture offered by Hamid, he will give you very specific instruction on how to write a research proposal. But as I said before, research proposal is to convince the people who are reading it that your project is worth spending money and worth doing. Okay, think about that. You're convincing your father to buy a computer, or your mother to buy a computer, or someone to buy a computer. Why? Why you need it? Why you require such amount of money to buy a computer? Okay, you need to think about all this stuff writing research proposal. So the last will be presentation. Presentation is quite straightforward. You present your proposed project. You uh, put all the things, you condense the things you put in research proposal and tell people your schedule or your plan in a 5 to 8 minutes presentation. So that part would be relatively easy to do once you finish a research proposal. You'll know what you need to talk about, what are the key aspects you want to let people to know in your presentation. So anyway, I would hope you can do well in the second and the third part of assessments because they are very important in this course as well as in academic writing. Okay. So anyway, I guess I will jump through this because it's doesn't some movie. People love movies, especially in this social distancing days. You can enjoy some movie which tells you about the life of a researcher. But of course, I do know that not everyone wants to be a researcher. But you can look at how research is like by looking at those movies. They are really truth reflecting movies that you can learn about the life of researcher and someone who are really successful. But one thing I want to tell you that research does not always bring glory. Okay, sometimes it can be how to say can be frustrating, time consuming, and no with no outcome. Okay, it's just like that. So yeah, if you're interested and you have the luxury, you have the time, you can look at those three movies. Okay, one is The Beautiful Mind, the other is The Theory of Everything, and the other one is Imitation Game. Okay, all three movies talk about the very well-known researchers in the world. Uh, I'm gonna quickly go through this one because it doesn't actually matter as much. I only want to highlight a few keywords. So what do we mean by research? I want you to look at those red letters, red terms. The first thing is about new and innovative idea or aspects of knowledge. We are always looking for something new. But for undergraduate level, we are only expecting you to understand what is happening when we are doing research. We want you to understand all the sorts of aspects in this area instead of creating something new. But anyway, if you can create something new, I would be more than happy to listen, to hear, to watch. But still, at this point, we'd like you to understand the sorts of structure or the things we do in research. But the ultimate goal of doing research is create something new and innovative. Okay. Then we'd like to do some solution to address some concerning matters. Then those solutions should be systematic, which means your solution is supposed to work on not only one problem, but a group of problems. Understand? For example, the very popular wireless charging system, okay, we are now applying it in low power consumable devices like your toothbrush, like your phone charger. However, you cannot see its application in high power charging, for example, EV charging. Well, this EV charging is still not available on market. Why? Because the technology is not mature. You use wireless charging to solve the problem of low power consumable electronic device. It's okay, but the same technology or the same solution is not equally applicable in high power wireless charging. This is the problem. Then we have to design a new solution, a new methodology to tackle this concerning problem, to address this group of problem. Okay, understand? So we are here looking for new solution to addressing the concerning matter, and this solution is supposed to address a group of problems. Okay, this is all about research. Okay, I'm gonna jump this because it doesn't actually matters much. Okay, what I'm gonna do is we're gonna take a 5 minutes break. You can go to stretch your leg, and we're gonna talk a little bit more about uh, the future few slides. So I will come back in 3, 5. Okay, is that good for you? Okay, so I take the silence as yes. Okay, see you later in 5 minutes. Okay, right on time. Let's continue. So I would like to explain visually what research is about. Okay, so you can think about what you have learned in your primary school. You learn about math, arts, sports, history, all sorts of basic knowledge in all kinds of subjects and topics. Okay, you must know uh, all those subjects that I have highlighted over here. Then, starting from your college, uh, you're starting from primary, okay, which means you covered a little bit almost everything. Then the sphere of your knowledge start to expand through your secondary school. You will still learn little bit about everything, but you start to have your own preference, right? You probably are more into science than into music. You probably are more into
music than into sports, okay, sort of things. So you start to improve the sphere of your knowledge by expanding the amount of information you acquire. Then after your college, you start to focus on something in particular. This might be science, might be education, might be engineering. Then in your master degree, you start to focusing on that particular area a little bit more. Okay. Then after that, you're gonna do your PhD. Okay, to push the boundary of the knowledge limit of human being. You try to touch the boundary of human being knowledge. Then by doing a PhD means you need to not only touching the boundary, but also to push the boundary a little bit. And this little bit push up is actually the new knowledge, new theory, or new methodology you created in this very small area of human knowledge in the world. If you look at the biggest sphere of human knowledge, then what you actually contribute is a very, very small incremental increasement. Okay, this is actually what research is about. But by pushing the boundary continuously generation after generations, we can expand our understanding of humanity and science. Okay, this is how actually our current or modern uh, knowledge system is built up. Okay, anyway, so I guess I'm gonna jump through this because it's not very relevant. So usually if you want to pursue a research career, like I said just now, you're starting from a bachelor, okay? With that bachelor degree, you're focusing learning on the knowledge of one particular subject, okay? Like you are from civil, electrical, mechanical. Then if you want to look at one particular knowledge even more, okay, after learning electrical, you probably know we cover the subject of motor control. We have the courses talking about particular in power system, right? We have the courses in communication engineering, right? We have the courses in power conversion, right? You have all these courses, and those courses are what you cover in bachelor. But when you move on to master, you will be looking at more. You will take a more in-depth looking at one particular course. For example, you will learn more and deeper about model control or power conversion. This is the purpose of master degree. You learn something more specific and more in depth. Okay, and if you do a PhD, means that you not only learn that particular area of knowledge, you also have to create something new by publishing a paper or applying for grants. So this is how a research career constitute. Okay, you study, learn some basic, then you move on to something more specific and particular, then you try to create, bring something new into that area. So a lifelong, so a research career will starting from bachelor, master, engineering, or a PhD. Then you start to do a postdoctor, then a lecturer or senior lecturer. You become associate professor. Then your life is actually in the track of academic, lasting for maybe 30 and 40 years long. But sometimes the good thing is the lifetime for academic is usually long because some professors, even in their 70s and 80s, are all still very active. Whereas careers in engineer or other area might be short. You may retire at 60, okay, at most. So, I mean, if you remain active, okay, and thinking innovatively, the lifetime for the researcher or academic can be very, very long. Okay, you know that some of the very well established scientists in the world contributing to the new knowledge in their 70s and 80s. Give you a few examples. Let's quickly Google it. Stephen Hawking, okay, he left us in the age of 70 something. So he is still working very actively in the area theoretical physics. So it's a lifelong career you are devoting to. Sometimes you cannot separate your life and research because they are together. Okay, life is research, research is life. So this is how a research career is different from engineering. As an engineer, you finish your project and the case is done. But in research, there's nothing called cause end. Okay, you solve a problem, then you may spot there's some problem in that solution. Then you start to work on new solution, sort of things. So there's no end in research. Anyway, It's a little bit more that I want to share with. So what we do here, I think I already covered this properly. I will just quickly go through. You find a topic which you have already chosen, then you identify the problem, you give a solution by working on theory and modeling. Validation means that you build up the hardware, you try to get some results and tell people that your system actually works. Then you try to do some publication. Of course, in this course, we may not have the chance to do publication, but still we try to follow the standard academic writing by requiring you to do some to do some professional writing, including literature review and research proposal. Then you're going to have a presentation. So the course structure is exactly aligned with the real academic research we do now in real life. Okay. So this is why I will jump because you already have chosen your topic. So there's nothing more to talk about how you can choose a topic in this course. But if you want to work on something other, something new, you can think about your expertise and what are the limitations of the solution you have at hand. Some of you may work in engineering field, right? Some engineering firms. There must be some improvement in company you can look at. But anyway, in this course, you are already offered a list of projects titles, so we probably will jump this. Okay, one question. Let's move on to some practices and skills. So one question, how and where you find reference? Is there any answer? Where do you find academic reference? By reference, I mean academic professional reference. You need to find a location to identify and find those references. So where do you find the academic reference you need? Okay, I think it's not everyone. Google Scholar, right? That's a very good answer. However, unfortunately, if you use Google Scholar, usually you cannot get the full access to the reference you want because Google Scholar only provides you. Yes, you have to pay. That's right. That's correct. But the thing is, you can use some resources offered by RMIT. Okay, I got the correct answer. It's called RMIT Library. Okay, so what I'm gonna show you is what you need to do if you are required to identify the paper. Okay, so I'm gonna stop sharing the PPT slides, but go to sharing my screen with you. So I guess most of you may have not been using the RMIT library. So what we're gonna do is like gonna show you a little bit how this can be done. You key in the keywords, okay, RMIT LIB, then you've got the link to the RMIT library. And by clicking into the RMIT library, you will be able to get access to the databases. Let's look at that. You have a find resources. See that? And you have a list of databases, e-journals, videos, and audios. All these resources are available to you because you are a student at RMIT University. But I seldom believe that. I think that most students do not use the library resources very often. You can find not only journal paper, but also some textbooks you want to use for your own study. So, for example, say you want to find. So, is there any book you want to find for your lecture courses? You can just give a name, then we can try to Google it, search it in the library. Any book you want to find for any particular lecture course? Okay, I will just use one in electrical engineering, which is control systems, okay? Then you can refine your finding by choose the particular category you want. On the left-hand side, say you don't want paper, or you don't want article, you don't want dissertation, but what you need is book or book chapter. You can refine your selection by selecting this. See if I can make it slightly larger. Okay, can you see it now? You can refine your selection by choose the subject that you want. Sometimes it happens. So Okay, let me just go back first. Okay. Uh, sorry, I think I cannot enlarge it because once I do it, right, the page flies around. So just to let you know, this is book chapters. You probably will be needing book as well. Okay, let's continue. So, uh, okay, let's select show more. Then we're looking for books. Okay, then you refine the selection and you apply the filters. You will be able to find a lot of books relevant to your control system. Then probably you can just select one. For example, this control system, classic, modern, AI-based approach. Okay, you click this online access. There's a blue link called online access. Then you can be directed to the location where you can get access to the full version of the book. And if you click login, then you can use your RMIT account, okay, to log into the system. I already logged in, so I will directly go to the page I need. If you're not, you probably need to find your RMIT student number and your password to get access to this. So once you get into the page, you can find the full text is available. Full text is available. You can click into the link of the database. And after a few seconds, you will be able to read it over here. Okay, so I probably will not teach you how to read that because it should be easy for you. So finding a paper is exactly the same as finding a book. Okay, uh, you can go back to the resources and just back to the library. Go to databases. See here? This is the location where we find most of the journals. So you can click into databases. Then you can see this list of databases here. Databases by subject. You can click into that. Then you can click this library subject guide. Then you have engineering over here. Okay, click into it. You can choose which area are you working in, computer, electrical, electronics, telecommunication, or simply engineer. We can click into this one and take a look first. Then subcategories of subjects over here. Okay, I will enlarge it a bit so you can see. See that? You have the civil and infrastructure engineering, okay? You have the mechanical engineering over here and automotive engineering. We don't have electrical, then you can simply go back to the subject at the beginning where you have a particular electrical and electronic engineering over here, and you can click in, okay? Understand? So in electrical engineering, I'm gonna use electrical engineering as an example. The most commonly used database in electrical engineering, I suppose there should be other popular databases for other disciplines. It's what we call IEEE Explorer, okay? This is the database where we find majority of the publication, conferences publication, journal publication in a large variety of journals in these databases. This is what we always use or mostly use for looking for the full access to the journal. So if you click this one, you will be given the access to the database by using the link shown below. So if you have already logged in, you can go directly to this source available at this link. Source available at this link. So I'm going to enlarge it a bit. You can see source available at this link. So you can simply click this one. If you have already logged in, you'll be given access to this database directly. Okay? And the same scale applies this to other databases in other disciplines. Here I'm using electrical engineering as an example to show you which is the common used database to looking for academic writings and journals. Okay, we look for academic writing and journal of electrical engineering in IEEE Explorer. Once you are successfully logged in, you will be able to see the RMIT logo on the top of the browser. You see this RMIT University. You have access to provided by this university. However, if you use VTC Shape account to log in, it will not work because the institute does not buy the databases. So you have to use RMIT account to access to all the databases we are talking about now and later. Okay, try to understand this. VTC Shape account does not work because the database was not purchased by the institute. So this is actually how we do the reference searching by trying to find those databases in different disciplines. So what we're going to do next, I would like you to do a practice, a very simple practice. So I'm going to switch back to the PPT slides, and I hope you to follow my steps shown just now to looking for this paper. At this moment, you just have to find me this paper. Then we will talk about what you need to do later. Okay, so here's a QR code. You can use your phone to scan this QR code. But if you need a link, please just let me know. I will type it in the screen. Then I want you to find this paper by using the steps I showed you just now, by scanning this QR code. Now I want you to read the first page. I'm going to give you some time to only the first page, no other pages, only the first page. I'm going to give you like maybe 20 minutes to do so, then we'll come back to answer those questions together. But firstly, I would hope you to follow the steps I showed you just now to find this paper. The title is here, okay? Title is here. Now I want you to spend some time to read on the first page. Then we'll work on those questions together, okay? So I gotta give you maybe 20 minutes to do so, and we will come back at 3:43, maybe 3:40, okay? So, okay, try to do this when I mute my microphone, okay? Is that okay? Okay, so I take the silence as yes, okay? So please try to find this paper, and we will come back to look at those questions. As I said, we will have some in-class practices in this session to help you get a deep impression of the steps. So probably we will have like 3 practices, and I hope you can participate actively. Okay, try to do it as much as you can. Okay, I hope you have already done this. So let's take a look on how we can get those questions answered. But before that, I will firstly share my screen with you. Mm, okay, this one. So you can do it quite easily by copy the name of the journal from the Google page we have here, then paste it in the RMIT library searching box. Okay, then it will directly guide you to the linking page. Okay, you have a few searching results, and usually the first one is the one matches the best. Okay, so we simply just need to access the first uh, item we find in this page. So if you click access PDF, you're supposed to be able to get access to the full version of the journal. Okay, so it takes some time. Okay, yeah, quite easy, right? You just have to know where to look at. Okay, once you know, you will find all the resources out there. Okay, you just have to search, click, and wait for the loading. Okay. Anyway, this is the paper you're supposed to look at, but it's not very easy to read here. So I already download the paper, and I can share it with you now. Then we're gonna look at those questions. Okay, this one. So I suppose you have a copy of the questions, right? Let me make it large. Okay, the purpose of reading the first page is because it contains a lot of records of this publication. Okay, usually most important recording information can be found on the first page. Those information including which journal this article was published, what time this journal was published, and what are the authors, and how this paper and when, where it is published. Okay, so on the first page, you can see in this heading, it's the name of the journal. If you look at this one, this is the name of journal, which is called IEEE Transaction on Power Electronics, okay, which is one of the top journal in electrical engineering. So by looking at the heading, you are able to identify what is the name of the journal, okay? And also its time of publication. It is September 2019. So if you go back to the question we have there, you are you are able to answer the second question, which is where is the paper published? Okay, so usually the heading contains information of published time and the journal where the paper is published. And apparently, the author of the paper are those names below the title of the paper. Okay, so this is also easy to identify. You can simply put this information into the answer box of the first question. However, you are unable to identify which affiliation those authors come from. And those information can be found, in fact, on the left-hand side contained in those small letter paragraphs. Okay. So usually in this part of the paper on the first page, we are able to identify some more information about this paper. If we read through them, you will be able to see that the paper is received at some time, accepted at some time, and the date of publication is on certain period. Okay, and the final version was available at some period. And the paper is supported by some fundings. Okay, why we need fundings? Because you will not be using your own money to do research. Either it is too expensive or just unaffordable. You need to find some source of money to support your research. Then we usually need to apply for grants. Okay, and those grants are the source of money we use to support the research. Either it is hardware, it's a medical science, it is a humanity science, whatever. But you need some external source of money to support the research. And usually, in order to make those papers trackable, we have to include those information when publishing a paper. So from the first paragraph, you know a very clear timeline how this paper is published, when it is submitted. You also know very clear what is the source of money that is supporting this publication or this piece of work. Okay? Then another thing is you also will be able to find who recommended the publication of this paper. Why we need to do this is because we want to make the people credible for publication of this paper. And if anything wrong, okay, if anything happens, if anything unexpected happens, then those people will be taking responsibility. As I said, publishing the paper academic is very serious. It's not like submitting an assignment in Canvas. Okay, you can put in some things together and give it a submission. Submitting a paper is serious because everything printed on paper cannot be changed. So we have zero tolerance to falsified results, to plagiarism, to wrong results. We give no tolerance. And in order to make people who are doing this responsible, we give it a very clear information containing source of money, who recommended, and who from where published this paper. So the remaining paragraph tells you who from where published this paper. And by using those information, you will be able to answer the second question, okay, which is author and the affiliation. Where is the paper published? As I discussed just now, you are able to identify the source of information in the heading on the first page, which is IEEE Transactions on Power Electronics, one of the top journal in electrical engineering. Then how is the project supported? This is asking you what is the source of money, what funding has been used to support this piece of work. Then you will be able to find in the first paragraph in the left lower corner, which is what we call Hong Kong Research Grant Council theme-based research scheme. Under the project title, number is this. Okay, Hong Kong Research Scheme is actually a very prestigious research grant in Hong Kong and is highly competitive. Okay, every 2 years there are only 4 projects will be supported. The size of the project will be ranging from 10 million to 25 million. So usually a professor can only get one thing-based research scheme within their entire career, and some of them even cannot, because it's truly competitive. And usually the area of focus are usually medicine, science, material. And you know in Hong Kong, the government emphasizes very little in engineering. Okay, so for engineering, if you can get one, then it has to be something related to energy, to the power system stability and security sort of things. So anyway, I would like to offer this piece of information to you. Okay, by looking at this small section of on the first page, you will be identifying the records of this paper. Okay. Uh, okay. Another thing is I want you to take some time to look at the abstract. Then we will continue to look at the remaining 3 questions, which is why the research is needed, what is the problem, and how to solve the problem. Those answers of those 3 questions are all contained in the abstract section. And by looking at these 3 questions, you will be able to know what is the function of an abstract. Okay? So let's take a look. So why the research is needed? I think the second to last question is more easy, is easier to answer because what is the problem is easier to answer, right? If you read through the abstract, you will be able to find these few words to address this problem. So that means that the problem must be somewhere behind. Okay. Now we move 1 sentence ahead. You will be able to find this sentence. The periodical occurrence of duty cycle larger than 1 deteriorates the performance of the PWM converter by inducing current spike and power surge. So apparently this will be the problem. And to address this problem, what method has been proposed will be the next sentence. These people conduct an in-depth examination and find something. Further, a new table containing additional pre-calculated interval in every sector is developed. So you'll see it offers 2 solutions. Okay, the first solution is an in-depth examination of the case, why it is happening. Then a new table containing a new switching sequence is proved. So here is a new table containing interval is developed. Okay, then the in-depth examination is conducted. So for the first, by using these few questions, we need to understand why we need an abstract section. In a paper, when you read in a paper, the first thing you look at is to look at abstract. Why? Because it contains all the key information you want to know, like what is the problem that has been identified and what solution has been proposed. Like I said before, when you are doing a research, when you are doing a literature review, those are the 2 key information you have to identify at the very beginning of doing the project. Okay, so these are something I want you to understand. Okay, so for this practice, the things we learn here is how to find the publication record of a particular paper, okay, how to access library database to find this paper, and when you are looking at the paper, what is the first thing you need to look at? Okay, usually is the abstract, which contains all the key information we want to know, including the problem and what solution has been proposed. Okay, let's move on to the second practice. So I'm going to end this sharing. Okay, front matter. Okay, we can review a little bit. You remember the first page that we talked about? On the first page, you are able to find all the front matters, including the journal title, the publication time, the page number, the paper title, the author and titles, the abstract, which is the key information contained, keywords, and publication records. Okay, this is something that we just covered. And just a quick refresh on your memory. Okay. Now, followed by that, you will be able to read some background, literature review, uh, introduction part. Okay. And for introduction part, it usually contains the background knowledge study. Okay. As you read just now, you will be able to find what is the background of the paper or the solution that has been proposed. Then you will be going to identify the problem and find some new solution in this paper. Okay, those are the introduction part. Then you will be able to find some theory development in the middle section. It usually will be model, will be control technology, or some structure analysis. Some of them are very theoretical, contains a lot of equations, assumptions, formulas, theories, and kinds of definitions. So you will find a few sections that contain a lot of theoretical development to address this problem. Okay, uh, actually, this part of writing com, are in line with our design 4A part, where you need to develop the theory. We're gonna show you later by using the paper we look at just now. But I want you to remember the two sections we talk about, excluding the front matter, including the introduction, where the background and some introduction on the problem and solution will be given, then followed by the theoretical development, usually contains some basic concept like modeling, like equations, like theory, like assumptions of these theoretical things. You will be find in the middle section. Now after that, you will be able to find some validations, which contain the practical implementation, simulation, experimental results, and analysis based on those results, why they are right, why they are good, why they are bad. Okay. And in electrical engineering, we use sometimes about Fourier analysis to do the waveform analysis. We do the error analysis. We do the trajectory analysis, efficiency analysis. Okay, and all this analysis are common language when comparing different kinds of solution, which I'm going to show later. But I just want you to have an impression about this. Then we're going to look at the real paper. So if we go back, then you have some conclusion, right? Because when you have done this project with this piece of work, you will re-emphasize the finding you have found. You're going to say that this solution actually successfully implemented in practice, and the functionality or the effectiveness of the proposed method has been validated by both experimental and simulation results. And followed by the conclusion, what you can see is what we call references, what we call back matter. Okay, mostly it's about references, about what source of reference you have used. Say you used method A proposed in paper A, then you have to refer back to that paper because you used it, okay? Because this is not a method you propose, it's a method proposed by others. You have to tell people you use it, okay? This is what we call trackable record of publication. You have to tell people what source of information you used, but those information is not invented by you. Otherwise, it will be considered as plagiarism. Okay. Then biography will contain some information about the author. Okay. Tell the authors, tell the readers the education history and working history of that particular author. So I want you to remember those matters we talked about just now. Okay. Let's quickly go through them again, and we're going to look at the real paper. Uh, introduction. In fact, introduction is very much like research method. Okay, like this course, like what we are doing now. Okay, you do the background study, you identify the problem, you brief on your findings and solutions. Okay, it's something you do in fundamentals. Then we move on to the theoretical development, which is more like the design 4A. The next trimester, what you need to do, you need to do some theoretical analysis. You may propose a model. You may use some equation to identify the control system. You may use some block diagram and flow charts to explain your code, your control logic, sort of the stuff. Those are all theoretical and mostly related to math, to physics, to circuit analysis, to structure analysis. So this is more like the thing we do in the next trimester. And followed by that, in the last trimester, which is design 4B, you start to do some validation. You implement them. Okay, you do experiment, you do simulation, you do analysis. Those analyses are usually the common language or the common standard we use in particular discipline to tell people not comparing these two products. Why mine is better than others based on those concrete and detailed data and results. Okay, so I believe that in electrical engineering, we have the Fourier analysis, error analysis, trajectory analysis. Then in mechanical and civil engineering, you must have the same data, same system, same standard to do the comparison. And finally, we will have the conclusion. Okay, reiterate your finding and highlight those improvements you have made. Then will be the back matter, including the references to refer back to the source information you used to support your research, as well as the short biography telling the history, education history, or career history of that one particular person. So I want to go back to the real paper and let you identify those parts. This is the first page we're looking at. So as you can see, we have all the front matter on the first page. Then we move on to the introduction. Usually, introduction will start by introducing the background. Okay, if you look at the first paragraph, what you find is the application scenario of this work. It identifies that the evolution of PWM converter. Okay, so you can see that the application of PWM converter is some converter that we use. Okay, has been widely applied in many areas. This is what we call identify the background, because this technology has a wide application and it's better than old technology. Here, the old technology is what we call diode bridge rectifier. It's an old technology. And this new technology has a lot of application. This is why we do our research in this background. Because it's widely applied, it is promising, it's a cutting edge technology, and we want to make improvements in that. Okay, you identify the background. Then you move on to something else, that is what solution has been proposed to help improve the technology in the thing you want to look at. So if you look at the second paragraph, it starts with various control methods have been proposed or developed. Means that very obviously they also would like to propose a new control method, because there are so many control methods out there. Okay, and of course those methods all has its shortcomings and weaknesses. Now we need to identify them, then propose a new one and a better one. So if you keep going, you're going to find one category of existing control approach is what? Then there are some explanation of this kind of control, which is VOC. It follows by this control placer will use something to do something. Eventually, what you can find, it's the explanation or argumentation on the shortcomings. Can anyone tell me where does the argumentation on shortcoming starts? Okay, so I gotta answer it on my own. You can see here, after explaining all its objectives or its features, starting from now, although, see that? Although means that although it has so many benefits or good things, okay, it is highly depends on the quality of the nested current control loop and the sensitive to control parameters. See that? Means that we're looking at the shortcoming of this type of control. It is not perfect. It's a sensitive to change of parameters. See if there's a change of resistor or load, the control will not perform well. Understand? So you look at one control or one existing method, you identify its shortcoming, then you point it out. Then you will keep moving, doing on this on other existing solution. So if you continue to read, the other category is called something, okay, different from this one. This is something has certain features, okay? Then it has the four features, okay? It has the benefits of no inner current loop, no PWM scheme, no flip-flop loop is needed, okay? Therefore, it has a better dynamic responses and a simple structure. You identify its benefits or the good improve the quality over the existing the former solution. Then you continue to do the survey. You continue to do the survey. Then in this type of control, there are also some other controls to be proposed. Okay, you have other kind of control proposed. Then you gradually move on to shortcomings. However, see that? The use of single vector per control cycle results in high ripple in control variable. Okay? Then there are some further improvements proposed to address this problem, which is called multi-vector approach, has been extensively investigated. Okay? So I want you, it's fine that you don't understand the theory behind, but I want you to identify the flow logic of when writing the introduction. Let's review what we have talked about just now. Just now we start from some big background. We talk about some popular technique in this area. It's called power conversion. We used to use diode bridge, which is the old solution, but now we're more prefer to use PWM rectifier. And for this particular PWM rectifier, we look at the control problem. The old control is what we call VOC. We just identified, right? The old control is what we call VOC, right? However, VOC is not perfect. It is sensitive to the control parameter. It has an inner current control loop. It is not stable, right? This is why we propose a different control to improve its performance. And here we propose a DPC, which is called direct power control. Direct power control is better than VOC for certain reasons identified in the later part of the second paragraph, which is underlined in blue, right? Then we continue to move on our survey in this DPC because there are so many DPCs, okay? Why we have to work on this kind of DPC instead of other? Okay, so you consider the logic here is starting from something broad, something which is more in the background, something that is popularly applied. And we identify in this background what is the problem that we hope to tackle. And then we examine all the existing solution by looking at the timeline, which is old and which is new. And in the meantime, we try to identify the problems, the weaknesses, and the benefits. Okay, this is why you can see in the later paragraph, it gives a more specific introduction or examination on this particular control theory called DPC. Okay, so you can see here, recent development contributes to something. However, this solution is not perfect. Then we have to further improve it, proceed to something new, something more advanced, all the way to here. See that? If you look at this one, multi-vector approach, then move on to here. Then we identify the shortcoming of the multi-vector approach, which is three-vector approach, introduce high online combinational burden, and are relatively complex to implement. Okay? It's fine you don't understand the theory, but I look at the logic, look at the flow of writing. Okay, something big in identifying the background, you identify the problem within that background, you look at all the existing solutions by comparing the new and old, and even in the new solution, there are developments, there are improvements. And we identify those improvements in the timeline by identifying the shortcomings and benefits. Then gradually, you move on to something that you want to know, you want to work on. This will be on the second page. Okay, let me move on the second page. Here, in general, okay, in general, duty cycle optimization is an indispensable control of this control method. Means that we have to use duty cycle optimization to improve this model predictive direct power control. However, it has a problem, okay? So I can identify this problem in the later part, which specified as it is important to mention impractical results could occur in the calculation of the duty cycle, including the value larger than 1 or smaller than 0. Because duty cycle has always to be 1 and 0. There is no possibility for duty cycle to be larger than 1 or smaller than 0. Therefore, let's clear the logic again. You're starting from a background. You identify the control problem. You compare the new control, which is DPC, with the old control, which is VOC. You identify the development or the involvement of the DPC in the timeline by identifying the existing solution in their benefits and shortcomings. Then you're starting to propose a new solution, which is called duty cycle optimization. Whereas there's a problem over there. You can tell me what it is. It is duty cycle out of 1 to 0. Then you have to address it. Okay. Later part, you can see this problem has been stated but not fully investigated. Now we do something to address it, which will be the last paragraph. To fill the gap, this problem would like to do something to address this duty cycle larger than 1 issue. Now you close the entire introduction. This is the flow of the writing for this section. Okay. This is why just now I say writing an introduction is more like a zooming down process. You start from something broad. If you look at the Google map, right, you can always zoom in from a global vision into some specific location like a home, like the school. So it's a zooming in process. You have a broad vision of the background, then you point to one problem, identify it, compare the old and new, then keep looking at the improvements, weighting their benefits and shortcomings. Then you try to propose your solution to address the problem. Okay, this is the logic of how we write introduction. Okay, keeping that in mind. Hope you can understand a bit by this. Then we move on to the middle part. Middle part is mostly about writing something that is theoretical. So I'm not gonna go through all the details. I just want you to look at the titles. Starting from the second section, you can identify. We start to build model of something, right? Therefore, by building this model, you see a lot of equations, like this equation 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those equations pointing to reactive power definition, okay? Followed by the section B, the model of the PWM rectifier. We found all those equations. See that? 6, 7, 8. If you continue to read the paper, you will be able to find more equations, okay, more figures to help develop the model of PWM rectifier. You put all this theoretical stuff, the model development in the middle section. Then you will start to work on your theory, a new switching table. This will also be a theory because you're going to propose a solution, okay, a control method. This is why you will continue to see all these equations, 15, 17, 19, 21, 22, all equations, very mathematical, very theoretical, and all this table analysis and some preliminary figures or results, and some differentiation equations. All these are theoretical model development. Okay, then you continue to move on to the next section. Just now is section 3, right? Section 3. We move on to section 4. So there are quite a few pages of theoretical development, analysis, examination of new paper. You have more equations followed. Then in the last section, you have the block diagram of the control technology you proposed. So it's also something you implement, you include it to help the reader to understand your theory and solution. You have all this theory. Eventually, we come to the section 4, which we contain all the simulation or experimental results. And in this section, you will see how we implement the experiments. You give very specific information, what type of device is used. For example, in this paper, all the devices I used is shown in figure 7. Therefore, you can see a figure 7 over here, which contains all the devices I have used for this experiment. And you also give the name of those devices you use. For example, I used the RL filter, I used the resistive load rated at 1 kW, I used this type of controller, which is called DSpace 1006. I have the oscilloscope for PWM driving and sensoring. And we have this Simulink software to acquire real-time measurements. You see all this information, how you implement them, are shown in this section. More importantly, we also include some specifics to tell them whether your implementation is valid or not. This is important because, why? Because if you say, if you use, how to say it, if you want to wash your clothes, you buy a washing machine, probably is enough. If you tell people you want to buy a washing laundry shop, then it's unreasonable, right? So by giving all this source of information, like how large is your parameter, what is the storage size, what is the voltage level, and what are the source voltage you set up, will give people the sense of feeling that all your implementation is practical, is implementable. Okay? But I'm very sorry to say I still couldn't find this information in the research proposal or project report of our former students. Seldom those information are provided. So I guess those are critical because it demonstrates whether your implementation is practical, is feasible. Okay, this is critical. Then you're gonna show people, tell people what the tests you have done. For example, test of new switching table in balanced grid. Then you're gonna show them the waveform, and they're gonna go down to the waveform on the next page. You see all this waveform are shown. Okay, you acquire some waveform, and you want to highlight some key points on the waveform, which will be used by you to explain those findings. Okay, and of course, in the middle, not only tell people what measurements you have done, you also have to do some analysis. If you read the second paragraph, you can see what people can find by reading through those figures of measurements. It gives some explanation. See example, it's easy to observe in this figure that above switching table causes notch in AC current, especially in some point. You need to give some argument or explanation. Not only simply put the picture there, you have to tell people what should they look at. Okay, by giving some argument and explanation. This is the purpose of what we call analysis, okay, or discussion, okay, and this is critical because it really helps people to find the key points and help them to locate what are the key findings of your research or your results. So I will not continue because this and the next paragraph are almost the same. We compare the figure, we tell people at what point the waveform is improved. And later, sometimes the time domain measurement means that the waveform travels along the time. It's not enough. It doesn't tell people all the information. Now we have to do some other analysis. In electrical engineering, one method we use a lot is what we call faster Fourier spectral analysis. Does anyone know about this? Fourier transformation is a transformation converting all time domain waveform into frequency domain waveform. Understand that? Does anyone play guitar? Say, if you want to play a melody, you need to the combination of different strings, right? Where if you play one string, it can only generate the sound in one frequency. But if you want to play some really difficult chord, you have to play multiple strings at the same time to create the melody, right? Am I right? So vibration of the string create one frequency domain sound, whereas the fluctuation of multiple string create a combination of sound containing different frequencies. So this is exactly the same in time domain measurements. When you look at a section of waveform, for example, if you look at this section of the waveform from 0 to 0.02 second, it is almost a sinusoidal waveform, but not pure sinusoidal. And this section of time domain waveform can be transformed into frequency domain waveform by telling you what is the amplitude or the size of that signal in particular frequency. Just like decomposing the manually you have when playing different strings. Okay, it's the same logic. You convert one section of time domain waveform into frequency domain. Okay, so by doing so, what we can look at is that if I want do more than re, then we have to have a high magnitude for the first sound instead of the second sound. So by looking at the frequency domain, we know the intensity of the signal at one particular frequency. If I want signal under this 10 to the power of 0, okay, frequency, 10 to the power of 0, I want signal at this frequency more than other, it should have a high intensity. or high magnitude. Am I right? So by doing this analysis, we tell people whether the waveform we have is what we want. Okay? The low percentage of other frequency signal, which is defined as THD, means the waveform is not good, whereas a low percentage of THD means the waveform is good because it contains the signal in the particular frequency that I want. Okay, clear? So you do all this kind of analysis to tell people, to help people understand why your measurements can shows the improvement of your proposed method. Okay, by doing all this analysis. Anyway, it's fine that you don't understand, but the theory, but I want you to understand the logic, what we are doing here. Okay, different discipline may have different way of analyzing waveform or analyzing your data, but you have to include all those data in your funding proposal. Okay, sorry, in your findings. Otherwise, you all may not be able to give a very convincing uh, experimental results or measurements. Okay, those are something that we do in our discipline by using Fourier transformation. So just now we covered the middle part, which is theoretical development. You put all this theory like equations, flow charts, or formulas or block diagram explain your control structure. Then you go to the validation where you can have simulation, measurements, experiments, the implementation of your experiments or simulation. You need to provide the structure, the components you use, the devices you use, and the relevant parameters to make sure people understand your implementation is valid and feasible. Okay. Then after you provided all these measurements and data, you need to do analysis. Some of them may use trajectory analysis, some of them may use a spectrum analysis, some of them may use error analysis. But anyway, there must be some analysis to help us people understand why your funding is better. Okay, by putting figure on paper is not enough. Okay, there must be some analysis to show people that your result is convincing. Then when you have done all this measurements analysis, you go conclusion, which I will not go through. It's simply re-emphasizing on your findings and restate that your experiments and simulations justify the funding you give or you propose. And after that, there will be a reference. You can see all these references. But I want to highlight one thing, is that those reference number needs to go back to the paper. Say if you look at this number 6 and number 7, it appears in the introduction part where I refer to this source of information. Okay, it's a very important thing in academic writing. You need to make all your citation traceable. If you look at this here, 6 to 7 is cited, means that this piece of information is not created by myself, but I cited them from another source. If I do that, you have to put down the number and refer it back to the reference section. Am I clear? I think it's very clear. Wherever you cite the information from another source, you need to put down the source over there, okay, by using the reference number. Whereas the reference itself will be appearing in the last section, which we call references section. Okay, this is why we have a reference section in the end to make all the source information you use trackable. Okay. One more thing to talk about the references, that we follow a standard structure of writing reference. You have to write the author's name, the name of the paper followed, then you have the name of the journal, the issue of the journal, the page number of the paper, and the time of publication. You find all the information on the first page are put down in the reference section. Okay, you put all those information over there to make your reference trackable. Okay, those the last part. Anyway, the last part is a photo of the writer, the author, and also the short biography. Why we do this is because we want to tell people who did it. It's simple like that. Otherwise, you may not know who did it. We need some short bio to tell people who are those authors. And sometimes it's quite useful because people can identify your work and yourself. Also, it helps you to build up your reputation because people know you have done this work. And it is valuable to contribute to something new in this area. Okay, so this is what I want to share with you when reading the paper. Okay, to conclude, When reading the paper, you find a different section and their purpose. To make it short, we have the front page containing all the front matters, then an abstract containing all the key findings and knowledges in this paper, followed by an introduction. We spend a lot of time in explaining introduction. Why? Because introduction is actually a condensed version of literature review. Understand? Let me say it again. Introduction of any paper is actually the condensed version of literature review. The logic is exactly the same. You start from something big, some background knowledge, then move on to the problem you move on to the one aspect of area you want to work on. Then here is the control of the PWM rectifier. Then in this particular area of control, we have to compare the old and new solution. Then in this new solution, there are some improvements, advances, and we need to weigh the benefits and shortcomings of those advances. Then we move on to the problem that we want to identify. Then we propose a solution and explain why this will work. Okay, the logic is exactly the same. So in the middle section, we start to propose some theory, some method, some equations to develop this theory. And after that, we do our validation by providing hardware implementation, measurements, and analysis. Then we will conclude the paper with your conclusion, followed by the reference, all the source information you used in your writing. Okay, then a short bio about yourself and other authors. So this is the complete structure of writing an academic paper. Okay. Uh, so what I'm gonna do is gonna give you a 5 minutes break. Then we're gonna come back at 7:28 p.m. Then we will do the next practice together. Okay, is that good for you? Okay, I take the silent as a yes. So we come back at 4:28. See you later. So while you are taking your break, uh, okay, how about we do this? I give you the 20 minutes to take a look at this practice. Then we're gonna do it together. Okay. Then we come back at 4:45. We look at this paper dissection together. Uh, because one of the assignment is actually about paper dissection. So I want to give you an example before you do it. I will use this paper as an example. So what I want you to do in the next 20 minutes is to find this paper, then go to this page, okay, to look at the questions, okay? Then we will come back at 4:46 to look at the questions together, okay? While you are resting, you can do this, okay? Thank you. Okay, let's take a look at the practice. Of course, the first thing you need to do is to find the paper. So let us go to the library first, then we're going to find the paper together. But I suppose you sure have no problem in identifying the paper. Just go to the browser. Okay, good. Then library. So the name of the paper is called okay, I simply type in some keywords because I don't actually know the full name. Usually, this is a very common technique. I guess if you don't know the full name but you only remember a few keywords, you can simply type in those keywords. Then refine your searching after you get a first round of results. So this is the keywords that I remember. Then I'm going to input those keywords. I identify the first one. It's not what I'm looking at. So I need to go down. I can further refine my selection by choose the type of publication that I want. So it's simply an article. So I can choose article to filter out those things that I don't actually need. Then apply this finding. See whether I can get some refined. Oh, find one. Okay, electric springs for reducing power imbalance in three-phase system. Okay, this is the article we are looking at. Then likewise, we simply click the access PDF icon. Then wait a few seconds, you will be able to see the full version of the paper. This is the page you can see after scanning the QR code or input the web page. Let me enlarge a bit. You can simply input your student ID, which is RMIT student ID. So I'm gonna use my employer account and my email address to register. Oh, then you don't have to input the E. No E is fine. Okay, those are the questions you're looking at. So the first few are quite easy. You can find all the information on the first page where you can identify all the front matters. So if you look at the first question, what you should input is the name of the journal where you can find on the heading on the first page. Okay, this is the location where we usually include the name of the journal where this article is published. So apparently, by reading the heading, you should have no problem answering the question as IEEE transaction on power electronics. Okay, can anyone tell me where to find the source of funding again? On which page? Source funding belong to the front matter, right? And usually front matter contain on page 1, 2, 3, or 4, or last page. Okay, I take the seven as the page 1. Okay, so it's page 1, and on the left-hand side lower part. Okay, so we can find, usually it is in the first paragraph. Then the structure are almost the same. You will have the track of record of this paper, when it is received, and when it is revised, when it is revised again. If there's no need for revision, that will be accepted. And the date of publication, current version update, and followed by the source of funding. So it's by Hong Kong Research Council under the grant name of this. And another source of income is called UK Engineering and Physical Science Research Council under the grant name of this. So it is supported by two fundings. Okay, quite good. So what you can do is simply by copying this section, this small section of description, and paste it in the answer box. Okay. But I would like to say a little bit about the funding structure in Hong Kong if we have time when this session ends. But the government is actually organizing all academic fundings in Hong Kong, and there's only one agent, which we call Hong Kong Research Council. You can log into the website and find some information you need. HK, if we type in HK, our Research Grant Council, we use the initials. And the first page will be here, okay, Research Grant Council homepage. Usually, in this website, you can find all the information of the fundings in Hong Kong, okay, organized by this Research Grant Council. Fundings in Hong Kong are quite competitive for, say, if you take a look at the funding opportunity, there are two types of funding that are quite competitive. If you do the research on your own, means that usually the research is a small size research conducted by one person or small team. It will be called individual research. Then there are two track of applications. The first one is called general research fund, where majority of the funding application goes to. Then the other is called early career scheme, means that young scholars like me, okay, who graduate within 5 years, are eligible to apply for this scheme. Okay, whereas all other well-established or researchers has years experiences will through this small size or medium size general research fund. So if you go into there, like at least 70% of application will go to this track. You will find some useful information up there. But usually what we look at is the database of funded research. You can find the list of projects funded by RGC across the years. And you can also click into, there should be a searching engine. Yeah, it's here. You can choose the year, say year 2020 to 2010, general research fund or early career scheme, but usually we choose the general research fund, which is more popular, more common. And the panel, of course, we're in engineering, then a sub area, either a civil, computer, electrical, or mechanical. Those are the four major engineers in Hong Kong. Say we choose mechanical, okay. Institute, any 8 institutes in Hong Kong, okay, researchers in any of the 8 universities in Hong Kong are eligible to apply for this general fund. Then you can choose anyone you are interested. But usually we leave this one blank because we want to see what kind of project has been well supported by this funding. Because by looking at those information, you actually can tell what is the cutting edge technology is being developed in Hong Kong. So if you take a look at here, let me enlarge a bit. What we input here is the year 2020 to 2021 General Research Fund, which is the common fund source. Then discipline, it's electrical, mechanical engineering. And you have a list of proposals funded by RGC. So, well, Mechanical is not my thing, but I guess the students from mechanical can take a look whether the project you are working on has anything related to those funded projects. Because as long as the project can be funded, means it has value. Okay, both practical, economical, culture, or scientific values. If you are doing something that is similar, that is good because you are in the frontier of the technological development. Anyway, it's just uh, some information that I want to share with you is called RGC, which is the committee organizing or managing all the academic fundings in Hong Kong. By accessing their database, you can find those fundings that was funded or is currently funded by a Hong Kong government. Okay, something extra, but I think you may be interested to know. Let's move on to the next question. Who is the first author? This is very easy. Usually the people appearing in the front will be the first author. So if you look at the column of the author should be my name. Okay, so then I choose the first one. Okay, straightforward. One is the paper revised. This is quite tricky because in the column of the front matter, in the paragraph of the front matter, we did not find any revision information. Okay, so this is actually happens a while. If reviewer feels that the paper is good enough for publication, they will not require to revise it again. It's like a one-time submission and straightforward acceptance. Then if there's no information or data of information for revision, then simply there is not. Okay. So among all the four questions, we simply choose the third one. No revision is needed. If you cannot find any, that means nothing. Okay. Then you choose the revision is not needed or no revision is needed. Uh, but this is common. Usually the paper will be required to do some small or minor or major revision, both for the language or for the quality of results or the completeness of the theory. But anyway, you will see that if it is required. Which figure shows the circuit schematic of the three-phase electric spring? I guess this question is very much pointing to the theoretical development. Why I say that? Because when you're developing a theory, it will contain circuit, diagram, okay, flow charts, explaining the working principle or the structure of the system. Therefore, if this one refers to a very specific item, which is circuit schematic, then it should be starting from, you should be looking at it starting from section 2. Okay, because the middle section, as I said, are the location, are the sections where we do the theoretical development. And this is relatively easy to find because it asks for a circuit schematic, look like some circuit. So, well, where to look at the circuit, I guess it's not difficult. You can find, very lucky, figure 2, okay, circuit diagram and place of the three-phase electric spring, okay? It's very straightforward, pointing to the keywords in the question, circuit diagram. Then you have no doubt, but click option 2, okay? I will not go to the details of the circuits as we have students from all different disciplines, but I guess students from electrical can understand a bit, okay, how this one it's constructed, why all this coupling and switches. Anyway, it's something extra. If you want to know, you can let me know, okay? In which year the journal published its first volume? Okay, this one is a bit tricky. You can Google online, simply Google. But there's a way we can calculate it. Why? Usually for one volume equals to 1 year. One volume equals to 1 year. So the first issue should be the year of publication of this paper minus the number of volume. Okay, this is something that not everyone knows. But here, volume number equals to year number. Okay, means that this journal has existed for 30 years. Okay, understand? This journal has existed for 30 years. Whereas number, the number behind volume, this number reflects the publication month. If you look at this one, July should be 7th, right? So 7 July, 30 means that this is the 13th year, this journal, okay? So if you use 2015 minus 30 and plus 1, because you have to count the year when the journal first published, then you should have the answer of 1986. then should be first one. Okay, so it's a simple math question. Anyway, if you answer this one wrong, I think it's fine because it's a bit tricky here. Anyway, and it's not, it doesn't matter that much. Which reference highlights the benefits of electric swing over state calm? You have to look for a reference. Means that you probably need to jump between introduction, where usually the reference appear, then the last section, which is reference, right? So that you can identify which paper is the source information, where the source information comes from. But first of all, we need to find the keywords, state calm and electric spring. Okay, you have to find these two keywords in introduction. Okay, because excuse me, because introduction is the location where citation appears most. Then we go back to the paper, then we look at the introduction. We have to identify state calm. Can anyone tell me where state calm appears? Is it on the first or second page? Okay, let me do it myself. Okay. No one tells me that I found myself. Simply Google. Okay, it's here. So look at these keywords. The superior performance of ES over StatCom in distributed voltage control has been reported in 5. So 5 is the source of information where I know that ES is better than StatCom. Am I right? I think I'm right. Okay, so if I'm right, I should go to reference section and look at reference 5. And go back to the end, then you find number 5 is here. It's the first author is X Law, then you have the paper name as Distributed Voltage Control with Electric Spring Comparison with Thumbsy. Then if you identify the answer should be which one? Number B. Okay, good. Okay, next one. Which figure indicates the control structure of the electric spring? You have to find control structure, and apparently it points to the theoretical development. So you should identify the information in the middle section where the theory or the control is development. So if we go back to the page, we will not be looking at those measurements because they are not theory development. We need to look at theory development, which should be a control structure. Then if we look at figure 5 block diagram of the implementation control, very lucky, okay? This is the block diagram of how we do the control, or we call it the blueprint of the control, okay? It defines how this control is constructed. You have all these blocks diagrams, all the connections of data or communications, okay, cables. You transfer those data in different blocks. But anyway, this is the one how we design of control. Then simply choose the selection of number 5. Okay, this is the one. According to reference 16, what percentage of power is consumed by commercial building? We need to look at reference 16. Then this is easy because you simply have to find the number 16, which is 1/6, and it appears in figure 3. Okay, figure 3. But the question specifically asks, consumed by percentage of power consumed by commercial building. If we look back to the paper, you cannot find the information because the figure provided by figure 3, the numbers provided by figure 3 is the energy cut down within a commercial building. You have 31% consumed by others, 28% consumed by air conditioner, and other percentage for other electrical appliances. Then what we need to do, we need to go back to the body of the paper. Based on data 16 of Hong Kong government, non-critical loads such as space conditioning, water heating, and refrigerator contributed to 50% of the total consumption in commercial building. Okay, still not the answer, right? Then you have no option. You have to go back to the reference itself. And we need to go back to reference 6 and find this article to identify what is the percentage of commercial building. Okay, then we find this one, Hong Kong energy usage data 2013. then you have two options. First option, you go library. Sometimes if it is a paid source information, you are able to find. But if not, you can go Google. Sometimes the open source means that those information can be downloaded by people freely or without paying anything. We call open source information. Then we can click in this one. Okay, we need to find this one. Someone told me it's 15%. Why the answer is wrong? Can anyone tell me? Why it is 50%? Is it right? Figure 7. Where's figure 7? Figure 7 is not. Okay, so I think the understanding is a bit different because you look at this one. If you look at non-critical load, such as certain thing, contribute to 50% of the total power consumption in commercial building. But what we are looking at, the question is asking the voltage, the percentage of power consumed by commercial building. Okay, so we need to look at the answer. And where is the answer? Yeah, look at here. Hmm. Oh, sorry, no, this is for oil and gas. Then we have to go down to, and this is for coal and oil. Then where's electricity? Is it somewhere above? Anyway, you should be able to find this because it's should be contained in the in this one in this source of information. Just take some time to look at. Oh, here, see that? This is the information we're looking at, and we're looking at commercial buildings, so it should be 66. See that? Should be 66. We're asking you to identify, or then I think I put the answer wrong, but this one should be 66. Anyway, just leave it. Okay, I will change the answer later. Last one. So when we identify the information, what did we do? We look at the 16 and we go back to the paper. The information provided is not the answer, it's not the question asked. Because this one is only for the energy distribution of commercial building. And this is 50% is in fact the non-critical load, including all the lighting, refrigerator, and hot water. Okay, air conditioning constitute for 50%. Whereas we're asking for the energy consumption of the commercial building. So you have to go back to the source of information and find this figure, and eventually you find for commercial building, which is the appeared in the yellow color, it's 66. Okay, 66. So this one should be 66 anyway. So last one, which of the following are the traditional method of balancing three-phase power? Multiple choices. Then what is the keyword? Can anyone tell me? And by using those keywords, we find the source information. Can anyone tell me? What is the keyword? So, Saturn. So I guess the keyword is traditional. Traditional method refers to the old methods. So usually where does old methods appear? Where we talk about old methods and talking about its shortcomings and weaknesses. Introduction. So go introduction and find old methods of balancing three power. Okay, so if you have read through the introduction, you should be able to identify that the old methods of tackling three-phase imbalance appears in the last section. Okay, it's here. Because we don't have the time, okay, I will just tell you where it is. Conventional methods to address this issue. Conventional reflects to traditional, okay, sending. Then you have a few options here. Using three-phase to two-phase transformer. Okay, first one transformer. Second, rotating equipment. Okay, third, three-phase to single-phase rotating converter. Okay, let's go back. Rotating machine, yes, it is there. Three-phase to single-phase converter, yes, it is there. Three-phase to two-phase transformer, yes, it is there. No shunt active power. So you're supposed to have quite a high percentage of shouldn't be bad, I guess, the result. Okay. Okay, what is wrong? Oh, anyway, this one probably didn't matching the copy and paste, but I think other one should. Oh, sorry, this one should be 7. Okay, why it is wrong? And we have one missing on the, but anyway, I guess I know why. Because if you look at 7, picture 7, yeah, correct. Flow charts of GA. Technically, yes or no. Why? Because GA is only one part of the whole control structure. If you look at this whole control structure, GA is only one small section of it. So this GA means that genetic algorithm. So what is more specific, or what are the details of this genetic algorithm? What is shown in the figure 7. So yes or no? I think 5 and 7 both fine, or we should make it a multiple choice question. 5 and 7, okay? Then I will be more concrete or accurate, okay? Anyway, and you don't have to worry, all the quiz designed in the Canvas are carefully collaborated. So there will not be such problem that we saw just now. So there's no worry of that. Anyway, this is the last practice, and I want to spend a little time to talk about the literature review. Then still have like 20 minutes. Then I probably will just quickly go through the literature review. In fact, one I talk about the introduction, it's actually the same as writing a literature review, but in a more expanded way. You have to put more information, as well as more details when you are writing a literature review. It requires you to input more content than introduction. This is why I say introduction is in fact a shortened or condensed version of a literature review. Okay, so this one, yes. Okay, so what I want to give you a general idea what we try to address in literature review in bullet points. Literature review tries to address 3 matters. Okay, the first thing is a theoretical foundation. Oh, this is not the one. Yeah, theoretical foundation. It's the basic theory that will apply in this area of research. Later, I'm going to give you an example. Just remember, it can be model, can be equation or circuits, but those are the fundamental stuff that we commonly use, no matter the subject is how cutting edge. We always rely on this kind of theory, like your own theory, okay? Like your Newton's second force theory, those fundamental theory that applies us to almost all cutting edge technology. You cannot escape from those theory. And those theory appears in the form of models, equations, and circuits. Anyway, we're gonna take a look at some examples. And within the theory foundations, you also cover background, like what is the application background at present, and what is the application background before, okay? Then second aspect we address here is technical evolution. Like I said, you need to create a storyline of this technology, like your cell phone. 10 years ago, the cell phone is like a block. It's so heavy and big, and you have no screen on the cell phone for you to watch it. And what you can do with the cell phone is to dial the number and talk. And most of the time, the reception is just bad. Okay? And nowadays, we have a smartphone. If you look at the storyline or the evolution of the cell phone, every turning point of the cell phone industry is motivated by one technological advancement. To think about that, okay, the first generation of a smartphone is by Nokia, which no longer exists. Then we have the Sideband system. Then Apple designed the modern smartphone with with no keyboards. Then we move on to the new Android system, then the new ISO system. They all triggered by one technological improvement. So think about the project you are working on. Think about those milestones, those key turning points. See, you're working on renewable energy. What are the turning points of this renewable energy that has completely revolutionized the technology in this area? You have to identify or pinpoint those milestones. Then, between milepoints are the improvements, the incrementals. If you look at the generation of a cell phone, there are only 5 or 4 generations. And in the middle, normally is Android 1, Android 2, Android 3, Android 4. Those are incremental improvements connecting milestone 1 to milestone 2. So this is the second part of what we call technological evolution. You identify the milestone, which means the great breakthrough, the key achievements. Then between those achievements, there will be improvements, there will be refinement sort of things. You think about your area and how you drafted those things together. Then the third thing we're addressing in literature review is critical evaluation on the proposed method and its counterparts. When we're talking about improvements, what we usually do is tell people the benefits and weaknesses. Why Android 1 is not as good as Android 2. Okay, sort of things. You have all these weaknesses, constraints, benefits specified and explained. People may understand. Only when you do this can people understand. Yes, we need that. We need it so badly because it create a new thing, it create a better thing, it make our life easier, make the efficiency better, make the system lighter, make the structure simpler, make the whole operation more effective, sort of things. You have a reason for those improvements, which is based on the weakness we have for the last model. Okay, so it's easy, but sometimes when you want to put all those source of information together in a logical way, it appears to be not easy. Okay, so the next thing is what I would like you to do is to find this paper. We will not do the exercise. You can do it after the class. I probably will just guide you through this paper and try to explain those aspects, key aspects contained in the literature review. This is a very classic literature review in power electronics, which has been widely applied in dispersed power generation, especially in renewable generation. It has a citation of more than 1,500. And I want to use this classic review paper to tell you how a review paper is drafted and how to apply those points in your drafting. Okay, so try to find this one, and I will do it when you are doing it. So I'm going to share the paper with you, and it will make it easier for me to explain the structure and the content of the paper, and hope it will be helpful when you're drafting the literature review. So this one. Take some time. Okay. So like, eh, sorry, not this one. Wrong input. Okay, this one, correct. Okay, like all other papers, a review paper is also a paper in one journal. So likewise, you will also be able to identify all the front matters like the time of publication here, page number, title of the paper, authors, publication history, abstract containing key information, index terms. Okay, so I hope you. I want you to spend some time. Maybe I'll give you like 2 minutes to read through the abstract because it's a short paragraph, and it's not so difficult to read through. 2 minutes. Okay. After you read through the literature abstract, can anyone tell me what are the three renewable energy will be discussed in detail? What are the three renewable energy that will be discussed in detail? I guess it's quite easy to read because it contains in the last sentence, this paper reviews the application of power electronics in the integration of distributed generation, in particular wind power, fuel cell, and PV generator. Okay, so it surveyed two or three renewable energy generation and how power electronics will be used in their system. So I will not spend some time in introduction. I hope you can read it through on your own because today, earlier, we discussed in great detail how introduction is written. But I want to look at the first section of wind power. As I said, the second important aspect, the first important aspect of literature review is to talk about the fundamental knowledge theory that we apply in this area. So if you look at the second section, power electronics for wind power generation system, the first section is to talk about the characteristic of a wind power conversion. And this is the section where the fundamental knowledge is briefly introduced and summarized. It gives a very short introduction, but a very concise introduction about what is the nature of wind power conversion system. Okay, so if you read through this section, you shall have no difficulty to understand that the wind power has a parabola shape as compared to the tip speed ratio. Students from mechanical engineering shall know this one. Okay, tip speed ratio. So the change of the tip speed ratio will change the power conversion ratio. Okay, by looking at this curve, one thing is certain: if we want a maximum power to be generated by wind, we have to control the tip speed ratio so that the power conversion ratio can be at the most. Is that right? Is that right? Right. So this is why we have to include a very consistent section to explain how wind system works in simple language, in simple figures. And move to the second question. Second section will be the section introducing variable speed wind turbine. Variable wind speed turbine. If you read through this section, you will find there are three types of wind turbine introduced. Okay, because we don't have the time, we will simply look at the figure. It points to figure number 3. So if you look at the three figure over here, it gives you the three common type of wind turbine, including the pitch controlled, the stalk controlled, and active stalk controlled. Okay, and of course, in order to survey or discuss the three different type of wind turbine as the key milestone, whereas I said you need to connect those milestones by talking about the improvements and weighting the benefits and shortcomings. You will be able to find section B is actually dedicated to this purpose. It will in the sorry the first part of section B is here in figure 3 is dedicated to this part. They talk about the 3 different types of wind turbine and the benefits and the shortcomings. Then you move on to the figure 4. Figure 4 shows what? Shows how the power converter is implemented for wind turbine. We don't have the time to read through, but still, you think about it has to contain a few milestones, the key technology breakthrough. And between those milestones, we're talking about those improvements and weaknesses. So if you look at figure 4, we just have to go down, we look at figure 4. You will be able to find 2 types of structure. One is called a rotor resistance converter, the other called a double fed induction generator. Those are the 2 milestones in this technological development. They have different structure, different way of control. Okay, so you see how this one is structured. But then we look at figure 5. You continue with the figure 5. Figure 5 shows the 4 possible way with the full scale power converter. Whereas figure 4 talks about what? Figure 4 talks about shows us a partial rated converter. See here, a new category is the wind turbine with partially rated power converter. This is the milestone, partially rated. And in partially rated, we have 2 types of converter can be used. The first one is figure 4a, second is figure 4b. You see how those things are connected. Then you move on to the third category is called full-scale power converter, which is indicated in figure 5. Now if we go to figure 5, you find A, B, C, D. Means that figure 5 is a milestone. From figure 4 to figure 5, there are A, B, C, D kinds of improvements. Then of course, starting from this paragraph, the third category will be surveyed by looking at the weaknesses and the strengths. Understand? So if you look at other, then we will not look at section C because it will be a different topic. Okay, finally, we don't have time. Now we're going to rush a bit. Finally, if we go to the last section, which is PV, you will see the same structure. You will see the same structure. Power electronics in PV system, starting from PV cell, and apparently it is very similar to the working principle of wind turbine. It will explain how a PV cell works. Okay? Then the whole section will be dedicated to this. Analyze, discussion, theory, and introducing how they are built up and stuff. Section B, power electronics interface. This section will be dedicated to power electronics interface. And if you go down, you will be able to see figure 15. And this figure 15 reflects back to past, present, and lastly, future. See that? So in this section, the logic is the same as in wind turbine. You have the 3 milestones. The first milestone is the past concept, which is called decentralized inverter, indicated by figure 5a, 15a. This centralized inverter. You have strings of PV connected together using one interfacing power converter to attaching to the grid. Then you move on to the present solution, which is called string structure. Then we have the future structure, which is called modular concept. You see, there are 3 milestones within the evolution of technology. And in each different section, we talk about the improvements, the shortcomings, the weaknesses, okay, which I will not go through. So anyway, this is an example of telling you how a literature review is drafted. And by talking through this paper, I hope you have a general concept, what are we looking at, what do we need to do, and how we can do it in the right way. And I guess this concludes my lecture today. So hope you find it useful, and well, good luck with your literature review and other assignments. So if you have any question, I will be here for a while. If not, you are free to leave the session. Oh, sorry. Just one moment. I forgot one thing. Let's quickly go to this one. Yes. There's a quiz in the week 2. If you go to Canvas, right, week 2, basics of research methods and literature review. There's a session 3, research ethics. and quiz research ethics acknowledge check. This section is not part of the cost assessment, so you don't have to worry. What you need to do is to spend a little bit of time, read through the material contained in the section 3 reading material. Okay, you are able to download over here. Essential reading: the Australian Code for the Responsibility Conduct of Research. It contains all the information you need to finish the quiz. Okay, so this one is only for your own interest. If you are interested, you can read through the material and do a knowledge check. Otherwise, well, I don't know what to recommend you to do. Anyway, this part is not the compulsory part of the assessment. I just want you to know about this. And I guess this concludes my session today, and hope you find this useful. If you have any question, I will stay here for a bit. If not, you are free to leave the session and enjoy your evening.